Daniel Cormier, you absolute donut. At the UFC 295 weigh-in show, which happened today, there was a conversation that showed up between Daniel Cormier, Chris Weidman, Lawrencenko, and some other dude who I don't know, during the weigh-in, while they were watching the fighters come in for the weigh-ins. And the conversation went towards, is Alex Pereira one of the greatest combat sports athletes of all time? And Daniel Cormier got kind of upset. If you think I am exaggerating, go and watch the UFC 295 live show, weigh-in show, and see what I mean. It happens about like maybe 30 minutes into the video, and this conversation appears, and he did not like it. He did not like the fact that Alex Pereira was being brought up in one of the conversations. He thought it was too early and all that. He mentions he thinks Ronda Rousey is more impressive. She's higher on the GOAT list than Alex Pereira. Now look, if the topic of combat sports go and all that, I'm going to get into all of that, and it's kind of a new topic, right? Nobody really talked about combat sports great. It was more so who's the greatest in boxing or MMA. Now the conversation has kind of transformed into, well, who is the combat sports great, right? Like everybody really wants to find out who's the greatest at this one thing, and combat sports it's kind of an interesting topic because you're not talking about one sport, you're talking about multiple sports. And Daniel Cormier was huffing and puffing, saying a bunch of nonsense, which I'm going to talk about in this video. But before I even start, let's talk about the topic of combat sports great, right? What exactly determines that? So throughout history, there was talks of like, who's the greatest boxer of all time? There's Floyd Mayweather, Mike Tyson, Larry Holmes, you go on, right? Then the conversation became, well, who's the greatest MMA fighter of all time? Well, you have Fedor, John Jones, GSP, the list goes on. You typically didn't hear people say who is the greatest combat sports athlete of all time because that was too vague, and typically most people didn't go from sport to sport. If you were a boxer, you're a boxer. If you're an MMA fighter, an MMA fighter. But now with the rise in MMA and fighters coming from different sports, it's the conversation has become, well, what about combat sports? No longer combat sport, not one discipline, but more than one discipline, right? So kickboxing, the idea of kickboxing or karate, taekwondo, all this has been around for a long time, but kickboxing itself as like a combination of all of that is relatively new when it comes to sporting on the world level. I know K1 did it. Now there's Glory. You have your wrestlers, you have MMA, boxing, etc., right? And so the question becomes is why does Lawrencenko, Chris Weidman, myself, MMA Guru, a lot of MMA fans online, why do we think Alex Pereira is one of the greatest of all times? It comes down to, when it comes to the combat sports argument, right? We're talking about more than one. It doesn't include just kickboxing or MMA. It includes what has that person done in both. Pereira is a 2-division Glory kickboxing champion. To become a champion in kickboxing, keep in mind this is not a regional circuit. This is a worldwide promotion. To become a champion in a worldwide promotion puts you in the top 1% of that sport. And if you become a double champion, if you do something that's never been done before, you're top 0.001%. You're at the very, very top of that echelon. And to pretend like Glory doesn't have some of the best strikers in the world is ludicrous, right? Rico Verhoeven, Badr Hari, all of these guys, man. Israel Adesanya came from Glory as well, right? And then he goes to the UFC, and he's no longer just kickboxing. He's getting taken down. He's got to deal with submission attempts from behemoths like Jan Blachowicz. And he goes and becomes a champion there. And now, tomorrow night, Saturday, he has a chance to become a double champion if he beats Yuri Prohaska at the light heavyweight division, a second division, which would, again, put him in the top 0.001%. There's like, what? 5, 6, maybe at most 10 fighters who are double champions in the UFC. So just like that, and even if he doesn't beat Yuri, what he's been able to do in such a short amount of time in 2 different sports, I mean, that is, or what he's been able to do in a short time in MMA is so impressive. And like, we're not even talking about what he's done in kickboxing and how he's beaten some of the best strikers in the world. Now that I've kind of laid that out and kind of given you guys some background into why we feel this way about Pereira being one of the combat sports great, when in the live show the question was asked, Cormier got offended, right? I don't think he dislikes Pereira. They have a lot of fun on their videos, right? You see it all the time. They have a good friendship. But he really played down kickboxing. And again, Cormier is a wrestler. That's just how he is. But he plays down kickboxing as well. It's only been around for a couple of years. And he says that while admitting he would get smoked in glory, right? This UFC champion is stating nonchalantly, yeah, I would get smoked in, I would get annihilated in kickboxing. He was asked if, or rather he stated the question, he was like, if Floyd came to the UFC and became champion, if he won some fights, would that make him the combat sport GOAT? Yes, you dummy. I mean, the guy's already one of the greatest boxers of all time. Do you not think that if the guy made the move over to UFC, won some fights, became champion, he would be like the undisputed combat sports GOAT? Like, the bias this man has towards wrestling. And I bring up wrestling because he talks about, I think, Henry Cejudo. Henry Cejudo's name gets brought up, and in my opinion, as of right now, Cejudo is the greatest combat sports athlete of all time. Olympic gold medalist, 2-division UFC champion. It's triple C. You can't deny it. Some people are going to say, well, he fought a low-level... when he was fighting, like, the flyweight and bantamweight weren't that impressive. I mean, he beat Dominic Cruz, who's one of the GOATs. He beat TJ Dillashaw, who was on EPOs. Now, he was coming down to a lower weight class, but he was still on steroids, so that's impressive. He beat Marlon Moraes when he was a dangerous guy, right? Marlon almost knocked out Merab, and Merab just dominated Petr Yan. And he beat arguably one of the GOATs of the sport, Demetrius Johnson, a very close split decision. I had it for Henry Cejudo, but he beat one of the GOATs. It's not really fair to say he's not beaten high-level competition, because he has. And I think he deserves to be up there, because becoming an Olympic champion is just, like Daniel Cormier says, it is just next level. With that being said, at the same time, it kind of is hard to compare Olympic wrestling and high-level kickboxing, because I consider, if I was to be asked, like, what's harder, to become an Olympic wrestler or high-level, like, kickboxing champion, the answer would probably be Olympic wrestler, right? Because the amount of countries that do Olympic wrestling, the level at it, it's been around so much longer, like Daniel Cormier has said. But it's not like kickboxing just came out of the blue, right? Karate's been around for such a long time, as has Muay Thai, Taekwondo. Kickboxing's just a combination of boxing, karate, Taekwondo, Muay Thai, all of these different martial arts. And to be a high-level kickboxer, to become a champion in kickboxing, you need to be a master in martial arts specifically. And so, again, Pereira would get annihilated in Olympic wrestling, but Cejudo and DC would get annihilated in kickboxing. I mean, Stipe Miocic made a quick last-minute adjustment in his fight with Daniel Cormier, and he knocked Cormier out using striking, not even wrestling. And Stipe Miocic would get dominated in glory. John Jones' head kick knocked out Daniel Cormier. John Jones would get dominated in glory. So to kind of put it down as, well, kickboxing's only been around for a few years. If it was that easy, I'd love to see Cormier try. I'd love to see these wrestlers and these guys try out high-level striking with guys like Pereira and see how it goes. I mean, you saw Jan Blachowicz, who's a really good offensive wrestler, try that with Pereira, and he lost. Split decision, very close fight, but he still lost. So I understand the argument that could be made, but to get offended and to get annoyed that this guy doesn't deserve to be up there. Why are you bringing up a guy? Oh, he's glory kickboxing champion, not that impressive. It's the top pinnacle of kickboxing, and majority of the UFC fighters would get dominated. In fact, Israel Adesanya was whipping around the middleweight division for years. It took Sean Strickland before Pereira did it as well in the middleweight division, and then Sean Strickland. But there's a reason why whenever a kickboxer, a high-level kickboxer, comes to the UFC, comes to MMA, the first question people ask is, how is he going to deal with the grappling? It's because everybody knows he's so good on the feet. The question is, what is he going to do in the grappling? Nobody wants to stand up and trade with him. So I think what Pereira was able to do in glory is very, very impressive. I don't like Cormier downplaying it. Can you compare it to Olympic wrestling? It's kind of difficult, because Olympic wrestling, like Cormier says, is so high level. But no downplaying what Pereira has done here. It's very, very impressive. But one thing I want to mention, and I was offended by this, right? If Cormier was offended by this entire conversation, I was offended by what he said here. He said that Ronda Rousey, he thinks, is higher on the GOAT list than Alex Pereira. She's more impressive. Cormier, like, if we were to talk about like technical MMA, this guy is leaps and bounds ahead of me. He's a former champion. He knows so much more. But we're not talking about technical MMA stuff. We're just talking about the facts. Ronda Rousey is a woman's MMA fighter. Was it the Kat Zingano fight? I don't remember who, but she like bum rushed her, got taken down, and submitted in like 10 seconds. Why are we comparing women fighters to men fighters? Why are we comparing the what a woman did to what a man did? I know that kind of comes off as harsh. It shouldn't, because the reality is that Ronda Rousey was getting head kick KO'd by Holly Holmes and dominated by Amanda Nunes, and women's MMA in general is so bare bone. Like it's not really worth mentioning. The conversation people have regarding Henry Cejudo's career in UFC and MMA, that he's overrated, he hasn't fought anybody, that shouldn't be towards Henry Cejudo. That conversation should be towards Ronda Rousey. I get what she was able to do. I think, what was she, like maybe a silver medalist or something in judo, in gold medalist. I don't think she was a gold medalist, but maybe a silver medalist or whatever. Very impressive. Don't compare her to Pereira. That is extremely disrespectful. Ronda Rousey was fighting essentially women who just kind of woke up and decided, I want to be a fighter today, right? Like, these are not dangerous people. Alex Pereira was beating Israel Adesanya. He was beating the best kickboxers in the world. He was beating, and then he comes to MMA and he's going to war with guys like Jan Blachowicz, and he's knocking out Sean Strickland, who's one of the best boxers in MMA currently. If you're comparing accolades, okay, but Ronda Rousey, as far as I know, come on. I mean, she got dominated towards the end of her career in MMA anyways. And if you look at the people she was fighting, I mean, the competition level is different. That one win Pereira has over like Sean Strickland or Adesanya is more impressive than Rousey's entire career. And becoming an Olympic champion, very impressive. I honestly think becoming a kickboxing double champion is very impressive in its own right, and we can't really compare the man to the woman, because Pereira's fighting literal killers, Ronda Rousey's fighting bums, essentially. So right then I was just like, what is Cormier waffling about? What is this guy going on about? But there's a moment in the conversation that I found to be extremely delusional, disrespectful as well. Daniel Cormier says it's not as simple as being good at two sports. And Laura Sanko, she was the voice of reason. She was like, he's not just good. She gets cut off, and Daniel Cormier goes, yeah, but that doesn't matter. Oh, well, it's not as simple as being good at two sports, but he's not good. He's amazing. He's 2-division champion, about to become 2-division champion. He's not, we're not talking about a Division 2, that might be a bit harsh, but like a high school wrestler level guy. We're talking about the pinnacle of the sport. Yeah, but that doesn't matter. That doesn't make you the combat sports GOAT. Who cares if you're amazing at two sports? It has to be more than that. He was making all sorts of excuses. Look, if you think Pereira is the greatest combat sports athlete of all time or not, it doesn't really matter. I think there are a couple of guys. When you get to the bottom of it, it's a longer list than people will think. You can put Daniel Cormier up there for what he's been able to do in college. Was it college wrestling? I think he didn't make the Olympic team, did he? Because of whatever the weight or something like that. But his stuff in wrestling and MMA. Hell, you could put Colby Covington, TJ Dillashaw, if you wanted to. TJ Dillashaw was an NCAA wrestler, wasn't a champion, but I'm pretty sure he competed there and he became a UFC champion. Colby Covington, maybe it's harder to make the argument. He was never really a champion, but an interim champion and a Division I wrestler. I think Brock Lesnar, why are people forgetting about him? NCAA champion, UFC heavyweight champion, right? There's quite a few names that could come up here. Alex Pereira has had a meteoric, I'm pretty sure I'm saying that right, rise in MMA. People say he got fed easy style matchups. Maybe. It's not his fault Sean Strickland didn't shoot on him. Bruno Silva shot on him and didn't make a difference. His first fight, there was a takedown. And then he goes and fights Jan Blachowicz in a upper weight class and beats him, right? He's stuffing some of the takedowns. He's not letting himself make simple grappling mistakes or errors. He's not getting choked out. You can't deny it that... Or, well, some people will try to deny it. I'm not going to... If you don't think Pereira deserves to be up in one of the conversations, you have your reasons, but I mean, make them good at least. Cormier's reasons were like, it's not as simple as being good at two sports, but he's not just good. He's, oh, well, it doesn't matter if he's a champion. Henry Cejudo being Olympic gold medalist counts. Kayla Harrison, Ronda Rousey does when you're at the pinnacle of two sports, but not Pereira because kickboxing isn't high level. I would love to see Cormier go to glory. I mean, the amount of head kicks that guy would be eating. If John Jones is landing head kicks like that, imagine what the best strikers in the world are going to do to you. And he refers to Pereira's double glory status as a couple of kickboxing champions. He's demeaning what that means. Glory is not a regional circuit. It's not a regional amateur circuit that people are fighting on. It is a worldwide global sport. It is, I mean, you have the best fighters. I think Rico Verhoeven would dominate majority of the UFC's heavyweight division. I'll probably make a video about it. I genuinely think he beats a lot of the guys in the division. He has a win in MMA as well. But they're not just a couple of kickboxing champions, Daniel Cormier, you donut. They're two championships that signify how you are one of the greatest kickboxers on the planet. And he's made an argument. Pereira's genuinely made an argument for one of the greatest kickboxers of all time. And to be, again, the topic of combat sports, GOAT, is kind of like a new topic. People are kind of navigating their way through it. I think, for me, and I'm just going off of what I say, and I think you'd be surprised, I think a lot of people kind of agree, is that what determines whether you're in the conversation is how good were you at one sport, and you have to at least be great at one sport and really good at a second sport. That combat sports, of course. That's kind of how we view it, right? Brock Lesnar, NCAA champion, reaches a pinnacle of wrestling, becomes heavyweight champion, pinnacle of UFC or MMA. Henry Cejudo, pinnacle of Olympic of the Olympics, of the pinnacle of wrestling, becomes a two-division champion, goes beyond just a pinnacle, 0.0001%. That doesn't make sense. He does hit the literal pinnacle of UFC. Nobody's become a three-division champion yet. Alex Pereira becomes a two-division glory kickboxing champion. He was the only person to do it, and I think another guy has done it, so there's only two guys in the history of glory kickboxing. Go do the math. Go look at every fighter that's ever been signed to glory and divide that by the two men who won the championships, and let's see what percentage of kickboxers in glory are becoming double champion. I'm going to tell you right now, it's not a lot. In fact, Pereira is basically 1 in 1,000, right? And then he becomes a UFC champion, and he becomes a champion in UFC. That puts him in the top 1% of MMA. And if he becomes a champion tomorrow against Yuri Prochazka, which I'm betting on him to do, he will be a double champion again. Now he's a two-division champion in kickboxing and MMA. I just don't think you can deny it. If you're going to make a argument, you've got to make a better argument, right? Oh, well, he got fed easy fights, which Cormier didn't really even argue, so kudos to him, because I think that's such a weak argument. There's no such thing as, like, sure, there are stylistic matchups that favor you, but when you're not fighting at the highest level, I mean, Pereira had basically no grappling experience. He was stuffing takedowns from Bruno Silva. Adesanya, like, say what you want, he's not a wrestler, I get it, but the guy's been training grappling a lot longer than him, and Pereira was, the one time he got taken down by Adesanya was when he got reversed. People forget in the fight, Adesanya tried to take him down multiple times, couldn't get him down. Jan Blachowicz, that's I consider it the most impressive win of Pereira's UFC career over Sean Strickland and Israel Adesanya, just because of what he was able to do in the defensive grappling. To say that he's had easy fights, I mean, come on, there is no easy fight. He got knocked out by Israel Adesanya. Was that an easy stylistic matchup for him? So I don't buy into it at all. I'm glad Chris Weidman was really kind of pushing back. Weidman was like, that doesn't make sense. He even asked at some point, like, what do kickboxers have to do? What does Alex have to do? What do kickboxers have to do for you to take them seriously? He's a wrestler. He doesn't take them seriously. I get that. I would love to see him go to glory and to put that to the test, right? He doesn't think it's that hard. Becoming a double champion is just a couple of kickboxing championships. I'd love to see him do that. He would get head kicked out of this stratosphere. He knows that, and he's admitted it. And I don't want him to be just out here disrespecting Pereira like that. It makes him seem almost bitter towards kickboxers for some reason. Maybe it's because he's been knocked out twice by Stipe, who's a boxer, and John Jones, who's got that Muay Thai style. Maybe he holds some grudge for that reason, or whatever it may be. Either way, I don't think you can deny it. Pereira is definitely in the conversation for GOAT, Combat Sports GOAT, and if he wins tomorrow, I think he's maybe right below Henry Cejudo, really. But I've said a lot, man. Do you guys agree? Do you guys disagree? Do you think Pereira's Combat Sport GOAT? Do you think he's up there? Do you think he's far away? Give me your thoughts. Go watch the video, the UFC 295 live weigh-in show. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace out.